also want to make it clear that while they're talking about these conditions, the January 6ers at least arrived at the jail. In this country, if we want to have a real conversation, let's have a robust conversation. Let's talk about George Floyd. Let's talk about Sandra Bland, who was taken into custody in the state of Texas for a traffic violation and somehow ended up dead. We can have a real conversation. But before I start to say what is or isn't going on in this jail, I've got to see it myself. So I'm not here to validate that there's anything problematic, because I can guarantee you that at a very minimum, they have air conditioning.
Yep, there it is. At a bare minimum, they have air conditioning. We know that there are some facilities in this country where that is not the case. Rikers Island is one horrible but good example of this kind of mistreatment on purpose. Because Mary, your point is well taken. None of this stuff is by accident. It is absolutely by design in the United States of America, that we got the type of legal system that we have the type of prison system that we have, not by accident at all.
Yeah, and I mean, we think about when you hear the sister talking, this representative talking, we're absolutely reminded that Angola is larger than Manhattan. Angola prison in Louisiana is larger than Manhattan, and it used to be a slave plantation, and people are forced to work field and pick cotton, mostly black bodies, and when they refuse to or don't pick enough cotton, they're put in a cell. This is happening in 2023 in America. So I'm telling people, like, we have to really check where we stand on human rights, and if it's a real thing, let's see prison reform to eliminate these type of tactics where people are forced to pick cottons on old plantations, where people on horses with shotguns are acting as overseers.
Yeah, and if they gonna visit, I mean, your point, just let's talk about the whole system itself. While you're at it, don't halfway do it. Let's do it all the way. Let's take a look at this. Today, nearly 2 million people are incarcerated, warehoused in cramped spaces that lack fresh air, healthy food, natural light, proper health care, and connection to loved ones. Prisons run with little to no public oversight, absolutely leading to abuse. This right here, top 10 countries with the most people in prison, and you guessed it, the good old United States of America. As much as we rail against many of these other countries that's on this list, many of these other countries we talk about like a dog. But look at us, we at the top of this. We at the bottom of providing health care and prescription drugs and all of that stuff. But when it comes to incarceration, baby, the good old United States of America, over 2 million people. China 1.6, Brazil 811,000, et cetera, et cetera. Iran, we even outdoing Iran. We number one, we the top dog in incarcerating people. And who is disproportionately impacted by this? The mayor's already started laying that down. It is black people, right? Black people, and then brown people. And then absolutely the system was designed to work for rich people, because they the one that designed the system. Hello? Let's take a look at some statistics, because I do want you to believe your eyes here. Incarceration stats, percent of black Americans in the general US population, and that's men and women, over a little over 13%. Percent of people in prison or jail who are black, over 38%. Incarceration rate for blacks versus white Americans, over 2,000 versus 450 per 100,000. Arrest rate for blacks versus white Americans, over 6,000 versus over 2,000 per 100,000. These stats are coming from the Prison Policy Initiative. So Mayor, here are the stats right here.
Yeah, and I mean, just like I said, the slavery was replaced by criminal justice, and these stats show you how they keep it in place, right? We also get longer sentences than white people, right? It's also, going back to that first graphic that you put up, it's absolutely disgusting, and people shouldn't think that we are close to China in incarceration. The fact that we have over 2 million people and China has less than 2 million people, when we only have 300 plus million people in our population, and China has 8 billion plus people, almost 2 billion people, and India has more than 1 billion people as well, and they're number 4 on the list. It absolutely shows you that America is a policing state that is built to profit off of people being in prisons. This is why we're suffering in this manner.
Yeah, that they never want. I mean, talk about slavery by any other name. I mean, that's why the black codes, Jim Crow, the peonage system, the peonage debt system, all of that stuff was designed because after the Reconstruction, it's important that the people who are joining us today understand that after Reconstruction, when the federal troops pulled out, it was business as usual in the South again. The same slave holding class were given, they got their power back. And they just comported themselves as if nothing had ever happened. And so life really did not change for the Black community. And we see all the carryovers happening right here in the 21st century. And none of this that we're talking about even factors in wrongful convictions, because those happen all the time. This headline, wrongful convictions disproportionately affect Black Americans, a report says. This is coming from NPR. There's no surprises here. All of y'all, most of us can deduce this. If you are a rational thinking, fair-minded person, you already know that this system was purposely designed to continue to suffocate the life out of Black folks. I don't know, man. I don't know if you think any good can come from this. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think what happens is we're gonna see some performative stuff where they're gonna get some votes and rile up their base. We saw a protest outside of the DC jail a few weeks back. But it's nothing about prison reform will happen because, as you say, the donor class controls our political class, and when that's the case, we know we don't have public prisons and jails for the most part in this country. It's ran by private business. They're traded on the stock market. Some of our favorite people like Michael Jordan are investing in these systems and making a ton of money off Black people being enslaved by a different name. I don't really see any change coming. Our prison system isn't broken. It's working as it's designed. The problem is we need to rethink what it means to have a carceral system, especially one that values money and profit over people's lives.
Yeah, and you can't change the system if that is the number one objective